Hello everybody, Shalom Aleichem. Thank you for joining. I wanted to share a couple of things about preparing for Pesach, and I want to share with you an insight that I got from a very unlikely source. Last night I was here in my office, and don't ask me how this happened because I don't really know how to explain it exactly, but I got a phone call from Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani gives me a phone call last night. We're not very good friends. We're not really acquaintances. But Rudy Giuliani calls me up last night, and he's sharing with me his insights about Passover. And the Talmud says you accept the truth from whoever says it. So this is his insight. And I think it was very, very powerful. A lot of people feel like Passover isn't real this year. They feel that Passover is I'm not with my family. I'm not going to the Passover program at the hotel. I'm doing things by myself. It isn't a real Passover, and things are very different. And I don't particularly feel connected to this Passover. A lot of people feel that way. So when Mr. Giuliani called me last night, he said I should call him Rudy, so I'm going to honor that. So when Rudy called me last night, he said that, how are things going in LA? Describe to me the scene in LA. So I said to him, in Los Angeles, there's no one in the street. The streets are empty. For example, I drove back and forth to the valley twice in an hour and a half yesterday. So he asked me, why'd you go to the valley? So I said, because there's this program. They give families these wholesale deals for Passover items, and I forgot the chocolate, and I went back there to get the chocolate, and Baruch Hashem, our family will have chocolate for Passover. So he says, I want to tell you that this year Passover is very significant. Why is that? He says, because people are home alone, and it's similar to the Jewish people being told to stay in their houses. The angel of death is outside. Everyone should stay home, and they should feel that God is protecting them. That's what he said, and I thought that was very powerful, especially because the word Pesach in Hebrew, Rashi tells us means v'chomal. The word Pesach means I care. So a Jew may be alone in his house for Passover, but a Jew should never feel lonely. You're never alone, you're always with God. I took the opportunity to ask Mr. Giuliani about his connection to the Rebbe. I heard that he had some connection to the Rebbe. He says, I love the Rebbe. I love those people from Crown Heights. That man made me mayor. That's what he said. That man made me the mayor. It's a few people, but he was number one. He made me the mayor of New York. And he told me how he goes to visit the Rebbe 4 times a year. He goes to the Ohel to get a blessing from the Rebbe. This is Rudy Giuliani. So anyway, so I thought I would share with you his insight, which I think is very heartwarming. The idea of that we're never alone. A Jew is never alone. We're always together. We're connected to our parents and grandparents, all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was a lawyer who told the Rebbe how he feels very lonely when he enters the courtroom. He feels very lonely, and he doesn't know how to deal with the challenge of seeing the judges and the jury and the opposing witnesses and the cross-examination. He gets really nervous. So Rebbe told him, before you go out into the courtroom, you should put on tefillin. When you put on tefillin, you connect yourself with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and all the Jewish people from all generations. You're not going alone. A Jew should never feel that they're alone. They're always connected with all the Jewish people. In Israel, there's a very common refrain, Hakol beseder, is everything okay? But this also could be translated to mean Hakol beseder. Everything that happens throughout the year, it's connected to, and it draws its energy from the Passover Seder. What happens at the Passover Seder has an incredible impact on the entire year. Every detail. And therefore, although you may seem like, okay, you're by yourself and you're not with other people, but what you're doing there in your Seder has an effect on all of us all over the world. So we have to really focus on every detail that God gives us. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was told by his father, when he was a child, pay attention to every detail that happens at the Passover Seder, because at the Passover Seder, these details have an effect on your life, and especially, he told him, when the door is open for Elijah, you could ask God for anything. So you really want to pay attention to that moment. It doesn't matter if you're one person by yourself in your house. It's God is with you, and it's a special moment. You don't need to have a minyan of 10 people. You don't have to have your Aunt Gertrude there. You don't have to, if you're Persian, you don't have to have those onions to hit somebody else. You can hit yourself in the head with the onions if you want. The idea is, wherever a Jew is, he is with all the Jewish people and he's with God. We're all connected. There was a similar experience that happened a few hundred years ago. The third generation of Chassidim. The Baal Shem Tov was the first Chassidic Rebbe. Then there was his successor, the Maggid. And then there Mendel of Haradok, the student of the musician Maggid. He traveled to Israel. And in Israel, in the 1780s, there was an epidemic there. And he had a very difficult time. And he said it was from Purim till a month after Passover. He said everyone should pay attention to the verse in Isaiah, shut the door, stay inside, and the salvation will come. And sure enough, there were people then that ignored the instructions, and it didn't fare well. But people who followed the instructions of the Torah to guard your health were protected, and that's a very similar scenario that we're in now. It started a little after Purim, and we hope it's over far, far before the month after Passover with the coming of Mashiach. Hey, we all prepared for Passover last year at the end of the first Seder. We all sat together, made the plan for next year, right? What did we say? Next year in Jerusalem. So here we are next year, and waiting any moment for the call of the shofar and to be together with everybody in Jerusalem. So I want to go over a couple of details. Got a couple of questions people sent to me, and I want to go over a couple of the questions that I was asked, as well as other general things that come up every year at some point during Passover. What's the deal with selling chametz this year? Many people usually have the custom of visiting a rabbi, signing a form, making an active acquisition, holding the handkerchief of the rabbi, holding the hat of the rabbi, and they are therefore transferring the permission to the rabbi to sell their chametz. And this year, it's not possible to do that, and therefore instead, it's perfectly fine to sell the chametz online. Just like selling things online is considered legal by the law of the land, it's also considered halachically acceptable as well. You could sell your chametz on chabad.org, and if you want to go on our shul website, it should be up and running shortly, God willing, to sell your chametz online, and it works, and it's considered a sale. Don't wait till the last minute to do this. The sale actually takes place, of course, before Passover, and in order to be included in the sale, you have to fill out that form in advance so that the sale will work for you. It happens every year, expecting the calls this year as well. I forgot to sell my chametz, Rabbi. What do I do? Yankel was supposed to sell it. He didn't sell it for me. What should I do? The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe actually tells a story. The story, there was two Jews who owned a beer factory. And the night of Passover, they walk into the synagogue, and Yankel says to Shmerel, so you took care of the sale of the chametz, right? And Shmerel says to Yankel, I thought you were going to sell the chametz. And they have a whole beer factory. This was their livelihood. And it comes out that their beer wasn't sold, and therefore they have to get rid of all the beer in the factory. So they run over to the rabbi there on the first night of Passover. Rabbi, what do? We didn't sell the chametz. So the rabbi said that he actually has everyone in mind, and therefore the sale could work for them too, because he stipulated all the residents of the city who sold with him the year before. He gave the non-Jew their names, and therefore they're included. But Yankel wasn't satisfied with that. Yankel was still bothered. Later that night, there was a fire in the beer factory. Yankel awoke, and he and Shmerel and everyone in town, a small town in Europe, in the late 1600s, 1700s, and they're there, and they're watching the beer factory burn down, and it's Passover, and Yankel starts to dance. Why is he dancing? He's dancing, oh, thank God, I didn't want to transgress the prohibition of owning chametz on Passover, so God took care of it for me, and he burnt the chametz. Okay, that is a very lofty level. You probably don't want to go and have to worry about this day before Passover. Try to sell your chametz in advance. Don't want to wait the day before Passover. And sell it online, and it works perfectly well. Just make sure that when you sell the chametz, you sell the chametz in a way that will work with the time zone that you're in. So, for example, if someone is traveling from New York to Los Angeles and they're relying on the rabbis in New York to sell the chametz for them, and vice versa, it could get tricky. So you want to go in accordance with the time zone that you're in, because if someone's selling chametz for you and it's already for you, the time Passover has already, the time to sell the chametz has passed, the sale won't work for you. And therefore you want to sell the chametz in accordance with the time zone that you're in, which is also an option on Chabad.org. You could also sell the chametz according to the time zone that you're in, and they all do that for you very nicely. There are many things that are done before Passover to prepare our home for Passover. Here's the first thing you got to do. V'samachta b'chagecha. The Torah tells us, rejoice on the holiday. The Talmud says a person should never say, "Oi, how hard this Passover is for me." Remember in the Seder there's 4 sons. One of the sons is the wicked son. The wicked son says, "Oi, why are you guys doing this?" You don't want to go in that category. That defeats the whole purpose of this holiday. You want to be part of the people that are celebrating the holiday, and you want to celebrate getting your house ready for Passover. So what are you going to do before Passover? You joyfully do what you need to do for Passover. One person called me, and he has a very hard time. He is at the age where it's advisable not to allow anyone in his house, and everyone's trying to stay away from people, especially someone that whose immunity is compromised. So he is not able to bring anyone in to clean. He has no power to clean himself. An important thing to remember is the Torah was not given to angels. God gave the Torah to people. So we cannot do what we cannot do. We could only do what we could do. So if the Torah says that you're exempt, you're exempt. That's it. You don't have to be more religious than God. Just do exactly what God says, but not beyond what God says, not to feel bad that you're not doing what you usually do if that's not what God wants from you right now. You have to be joyful in doing what God wants you to do. People say, 1 second, isn't the prohibition of chametz even the tiniest bit? There's another thing that's prohibited, the tiniest bit, and that is anger. You're not allowed to be angry, even a tiny bit angry. You're not allowed to have any trace of anger. And actually, regarding chametz, regarding the ownership of chametz, there's no prohibition of owning a crumb of chametz that is unedible. No prohibition of owning chametz that's unedible or that you don't know about. You have to try to get rid of as much chametz as you can, but it's not spring cleaning. If you're not able to mop, you could sweep. You have to just get rid of the chametz that is sizable and important. So if it's less than an ounce, but it's still something important, you want to get rid of it. If it's more than an ounce, even if it's not such an important thing, you also want to get rid of it. I say important, I mean something that's edible and that you would eat. So if it's a Cheerio, you want to get rid of it. So you have to get rid of all those items in your house, and if you can't, well, there is another option. The other option is that you could section off parts of your home and say, I'm selling this for Passover. I'm not going to use this area of my house for Passover. And that way, it's not considered owning chametz on Passover because you've sold that to the non-Jew. So if there's areas in your house that you're not able to get to and to clean, you can sweep them under the spiritual rug and mark those areas off of your house, and they are considered sold to a non-Jew. This gentleman I'm talking to, who is listening tonight, thank you for listening. It's sufficient to sell those areas which you are unable to get to, and do the best you can to remove the actual real chametz, actual bread from your house, and don't worry about crumbs. Crumbs that are unedible are not really chametz. Regarding searching for chametz, very often people have cars that they think they're going to get to them sometime before Passover, and they don't realize that just like it's a mitzvah to search your house for chametz, it's also a mitzvah to get rid of the chametz from any place that you own on Passover. So if you own a car, it's as important to rid the car of chametz as it is your house. You cannot wait to the day before Passover to get rid of the chametz in your car. You want to get rid of the chametz in your car the same time you want to get rid of the chametz of the rest of your house. So there's a way to get rid of the chametz in your car in an easier way than the rest of the chametz in your house. Usually, on every area where chametz may have reached, you have children in the house, they bring chametz everywhere, you have to search with a candle throughout your house, in nooks and crevices, to make sure there is no substantial chametz anywhere. So, regarding your car, since a car has what's called in the Talmud achsadra, it's a place which is well lit, so you don't actually have to go at night with a candle and search your car for chametz. It's sufficient to open the car doors during the daytime, after you've cleaned the car during the daytime, and see that it's actually empty, there's no chametz there, and it's fine. You don't have to go search for chametz at night. But if you didn't search for chametz till the nighttime, sorry, got to go outside with a candle and a flashlight and look for the chametz in your car. Same as also with your place of work. If you're working somewhere and you want to keep your office open on Passover, you want to go to your office on Passover, you want to retain ownership of your office and use your office on Passover, so you also have to get rid of all the chametz in your office. You also have to take a candle and go to your office and search your office, and then one of the nights before the last night, but you don't have to do that the last night, you don't have to leave your house. The night before Passover, go to your office. You can do it 3 nights before Passover, just don't bring any more hamburgers, but not hamburgers and buns. Don't bring any more chametz into your office after you search your office for Passover. So clearly, you're just making it, just to clarify again, you have to get rid of all the chametz in your office, and you have to search your office, but you don't have to do it the night before Passover. You can do it 3 nights before Passover as well. You take a candle and you search through the office before Passover, and then that office is now able to be used on Passover. If you're not using your office on Passover, then great. Then you don't have to search it. You could also sell that as well with all the other chametz. Let's say you forgot to search your car or whatever, another room in the house, and it's the day before Passover. The night is passed already, it's now the day of Passover. The halacha is, you take that candle, and you make a bracha, and you search for chametz in the room that you forgot to check on the night before Passover. You have to actually search with a candle by daytime, any place you forgot to check at night. What about areas in your house that are dedicated to holding Passover items? 4 days before Passover, you've sectioned off a part of your kitchen or your whole kitchen, and you're putting Passover items there. So you're not able to really check that the night before Passover because it's full of the potatoes and tomatoes and the cucumbers and zucchinis. How are you supposed to search for the candle over there? So what you do is, before you put in all the potatoes and tomatoes, you take a candle, and a few nights before Passover, when you're ready to bring in all the Passover items, you search through that area, and that is sufficient. You don't have to go again the night before Passover, so providing that you didn't put any chametz in that area again, you could be able to search that area independently of the search for chametz on the night before Passover. A lot of people this year have a very hard time with new dishes. You want to buy new dishes for Passover, you want to buy new items for your kitchen on Passover, and you're not able to go to toivel them. There's no available kelim mikveh, or you're afraid to use the kelim mikveh, you're afraid to use the utensil mikveh, so what should you do? So there is a leniency which is available to be used on a temporary basis, and that is you're only obligated to immerse those vessels that are owned by yourself. However, if you give them to a non-Jew, they are not obligated to be immersed. So you're able to temporarily gift them to a non-Jew and borrow them for an extended period of time, and then you are able to rely on that and use those vessels until you're able to get to Malibu or San Monica, or until the mikvahs reopen, and until, or more, hopefully sooner than that, everyone is better and we're able to use the kelim mikvahs, the utensil mikvahs. So, the night before Passover, you have cleaned and you have searched your house for chametz, and now you have this chametz in a bag, so that you're going to use for the next day for breakfast, or the chametz you searched for. You're supposed to put that away and wrap that and with the candle and the spoon and put that away. What if you're not able to burn the chametz? You don't have a grill in your backyard. You don't have an easy way of burning chametz. There is no place that I know of that is publicly burning chametz, and even if there is, I don't know if you want to go there. So what do you do about burning chametz? So it's perfectly okay to put the chametz in the trash before Passover. Nan Isaac, Baruch Hashem, he has arranged that the Passover, that before Passover, trash is going to be picked up and removed from your auspices before Passover. You could reach out to Reb Nat and the Reb Nisanel, and then you could put it in the garbage, and the garbage is taken away, and it's not anywhere there. Additionally, you also want to take some of the chametz that you've found, or the 10 crumbs that you put away the night before Passover, and you want to get rid of them as is customary. So what you could do is you could flush that in the toilet, some of the chametz, and also, if it's not affecting your shalom bayis, if it's not going to make your household crazy, it's also possible to just burn a crumb of chametz that has also some possible spiritual benefit, to do the custom of burning chametz. You don't have to burn a lot of chametz, just to burn something. Even last year or 2 years ago, when the burning of the chametz is done in public in Los Angeles, they don't want you to burn everything, right? You bring these huge bags, like throw some of it out. So in a similar way, you could also burn a tiny bit of the chametz as well, take a match and burn a crumb of chametz. That's also something, in a way to fulfill that custom to some extent. But again, you're not obligated to do that, and you should flush the chametz down the toilet, and then you could say the kol chamira, where you declare that any chametz that you did not find, or chametz that you knew about and now forgot, that should be declared ownerless. And there's a beautiful, beautiful prayer that we recite in the morning before Passover, a beautiful prayer where we ask God to remove all chametz in our heart, all leaven in our heart, all negative feelings in our heart, anything that separates us between us and God. So you want to say that beautiful prayer, and you could say that prayer whether or not you burn anything of the chametz. It's a beautiful prayer, and you want to say that. What about firstborn? The day before Passover, all firstborn are supposed to fast to commemorate how God saved all the firstborn, and you're a firstborn, and there's no public place to hear a siyum. There's no public place to hear. Customarily, we usually hear a book of Talmud being concluded, and we celebrate the conclusion of the book of Talmud in the synagogue. And if you're part of that celebration, you hear that celebration, so you can celebrate, and therefore you could break your fast. So what happens to this year where you're not able to hear that celebration? So some opinions say that's sufficient to hear on the phone. Most opinions say that doesn't work, but some people say that's sufficient. You could hear another person somewhere in the world reciting the end of a book of Talmud, and that works. Other opinions say that it does not work, and instead what you should do is you yourself, which is possible now, it's not a big deal, you should yourself learn 6 chapters of Ethics of Our Fathers, read through 6 chapters of Ethics of Our Fathers. It's something you need to do anyways. You need to do this anyways because you want to come into Passover, and you want to come in as spiritually prepared as well as you can. So take a few days now from now till Passover, finish the 6 chapters of Ethics of Our Fathers, and it's sufficient for you to celebrate the book of Talmud yourself or your household, and that is now a day of celebration for you because you have finished a book of Talmud, the book of Ethics of Our Fathers. You can read it in English as well, and that's celebration, and that works. There are many items that are technically one more thing I want to mention before I continue. Porches or backyards. Before Passover, a lot of people are eating a lot outside in the front yard and the backyard, which belong to them, and they don't want to bring chametz in the house. They're eating in the front yard and the backyard, just like we said before about the car, that you could hose down the area and you could check it during the daytime. You don't have to go out with a candle middle of the night and search for chametz at night in the front yard and the backyard. Sufficient during the daytime, hose it down, and to just look around and make sure that there's no substantial pieces of bread there in the front or in the back. Okay, I want to go over a couple of things at night of the Seder which are very important. There's a mitzvah on night of the Seder to vigarata levincha, mitzvah to tell your child the story of Passover. And that's why it's customary for the child to ask the 4 questions, because the whole story of Passover is meant to be a response to that child. So I was thinking this year, many of us don't have children, and many of us, even if they have children, they're not with their children. And I was thinking that, there's a child within yourself. And there's a lot of things that we know with our minds, and we know we're rational. And night of Passover, especially if you're by yourself, you have to wake up that child in you. The Talmud says you're supposed to begin the Seder immediately as nightfall begins, because you don't want that child to fall asleep. You don't want the child within you, that sense of innocence and purity within you, not to be present at the night of the Seder. You want to wake that child up and you want to wake up your curiosity and to ask the question, why is this night different than all other nights? Where am I this year? Where am I going? Where have I been? And how am I going to go beyond my limitations this year and free myself from my personal Egypt and my personal Pharaoh within myself? So the night of the Seder, there's a couple of mitzvahs, a couple of commandments we have to do. Number one is, there's a mitzvah, as I mentioned before, to be happy on the holiday. You don't want to come into your household and be all nervous because you've had to do all these things before Passover. You want to rejoice in the holiday. Number two, there's a mitzvah on the night of the Seder to say the story of the miracle. And if you're not familiar with the language of the Haggadah, you don't know what those words mean, it's good to read it before Passover and to get a sense of what you're saying. When the night of the Seder comes, you know what you're talking about, you know what the celebration is about, and you're there fully saying the story of Passover and being part of the story and reliving the story. As the Talmud says, that the night of Passover is supposed to relive the story. There's another mitzvah. The mitzvah is to drink 4 cups of wine. Now, I know a lot of people are home and they're just thinking about, oh, I'm stuck, I'm home, I don't want to do, I'll just drink 4 cups and where's the matzah and I'll say yabba dab dab. Doesn't work like that. You are not doing anybody a service by drinking 4 cups of wine in a row. The 4 cups of wine have to be done exactly in the places of the Seder. If you can't do them in the place of the Seder, then it's not really the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to do them specifically at the occasions that we're supposed to do them during the Seder, which is the first cup by Kiddush, the lean again on your left side when you have the first cup. The cup should be enough to hold at least 86 grams. 86 grams is the size that the minimum that a cup of Kiddush that we should use for the 4 cups. You should drink the entire cup, and children also, they should drink grape juice or whatever they're able to drink. And adults also, they can't drink wine. They should drink grape juice or whatever they're able to drink, a mixture of grape juice and wine. And if grape juice doesn't work for you either, there are other sizes. You could message me to discover other different ways to fulfill this mitzvah if you're unable to drink a full amount of the grape juice of 86 grams. There's also a commandment. Sorry about that. Okay, so there is a mitzvah to drink the cup of wine. It's better to use non-cooked wine. Usually people want the wine to be cooked because there are all different kinds of people coming in the house and the halachic precautions about wine which isn't cooked. But if you're by yourself, of course, there's nothing to worry about, and it's preferable to use night of the Seder non-cooked red wine. There are a few occasions throughout the Seder where we eat matzah. So I want to go over briefly the mitzvah of matzah. When you get up to urchatz, the part you wash your hands before eating the onion or the potato or whatever you have in your Seder table, when you wash your hands, you don't say the bracha al natil sedayim. At every Seder table is always somebody who makes the mistake and says the blessing. It's not 100% clear what the custom is. Rabbi Ashkenazi, alav shalom, from Chabad, said that although there is a rumor that the Rebbe said that you should eat the matzah immediately you say the bracha, he has information otherwise, and that you should just continue to say it regularly, eat the karpas. When you do eat the karpas, you say a bracha adama on the karpas, and you have in mind with the bracha of adama, that should also go for the morar and the korech. Okay, you read the Haggadah, you have the second cup, you wash now for the matzah. When you wash for the matzah, you hold, if you are leading the Seder and you have the 3 matzahs in front of you, if you're the only person at the Seder, of course, you're the guy leading the Seder. So you have the 3 matzahs in front of you, and you say the bracha of Hamotzi Lechem in Haaretz, then you drop the bottom matzah, then you say the bracha al achilas matzah, and you eat 27 grams from the top matzah and 27 grams from the remainder of the middle matzah. If you are not running the Seder and it's sufficient to have 1 ounce of matzah. Now, getting further on to the mitzvah of korech. Korech, you take the bottom matzah and you have 1 ounce of the bottom matzah for the korech sandwich. And at the end of the Seder, the afikoman, it's customary to have 2 ounces of the afikoman matzah as well, because there's an argument in the Talmud whether or not you're supposed to commemorate, when you eat the afikoman matzah, whether you're supposed to commemorate the Passover lamb only, or you're supposed to commemorate also the matzah that was eaten with the Passover lamb. And to commemorate both, it's preferable to have actually 2 ounces of the afikoman. At the end of the Seder, the last part of the Seder is nirtza. You know what nirtza is? Nirtza is this. Nirtza is a word that the Code of Jewish Law says about nirtza. The word is muftach. Muftach means to be absolutely certain that God has accepted what you have done and that He is going to bring this Seder that you have offered to Him into His heart and cherish it forever and connect with you and bless you with freedom from all things that disturb you, both materially and spiritually. The Code of Jewish Law says not you should think, not you should hope, you should be muftach, you should be certain. And you say L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem, and the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said, doesn't mean you have to wait till next year. Mashiach should come right now, and automatically, by next year, we'll already be in Yerushalayim with Mashiach, because Mashiach is coming now. So already, by next year for sure, we will be there. This is what I wanted to share tonight. Anyone who has any questions, comments, and okay, I see someone asked how much is an ounce of matzah. It really depends what size the matzah is. There are different the kinds of matzah, and it depends. But it's usually between a half and 2/3 of a matzah. All right, gute Nacht, Freilichen, Kosh Freilichen Pesach, and L'shana B'Yerushalayim. All the best, everybody.